Sitting on the park bench, eyeing little girls with bad intensity. Hey, Aquila, drying in the cold sun, watching as the pretty Peggy.
Marble Madness was released on the NES in 1989, after much success of the arcade version. In this game, you control a marble that looks much like a bowling ball, and send it down an isometric path filled with narrow passageways, obstacles, and drops. The object is simply to get to the end of the level within the time limit. No plot, no story, none of that bullshit. Just get your marble ass to the goal before the time runs out on you. If you fall into a bottomless pit, or slide off the side of a ramp and break the marble, you'll respawn and you don't have to worry about losing lives or anything like that. The only way to get a game over is to run out of time. At the beginning, you can input a 6-digit name to rank your score. And since the game really doesn't last too long, you might get a few names up on the scoreboard before you shut off the power and erase everything. The graphics are really good. I mean, of course they don't match up to the arcade version, but considering it's a 3D environment, the designers did a really good job at making the platforms distinguishable. You can tell the floors apart from the walls and the jumps and the dips. The music kicks ass. All 6 levels and the end theme are all great. Especially level 2, the beginner race, and level 6, the ultimate race. That solo at the end is sick. Oh yeah, that's another thing. There are only 6 levels. So the game is pretty short, but the challenge of getting through all of them in such a short period of time makes up for it. The faster you get through the level, the more time gets tacked on to the starting time for the next stage, so don't fuck around and try to collect points. This is a race, so you gotta be aggressive at all times. And there are no continues, so if you run out of time, you have to start all over. The control is really smooth. At the beginning of the game, you can choose your control type, 90 degrees or 45 degrees. 45 degree control is a bit odd. Pressing down will move you to the lower right, pressing up moves to the top left, pressing left goes to the bottom left, and pressing right moves to the top right. It's just as confusing as it sounds. I highly recommend choosing 90 degrees. There's a 2-player mode, but as intense as it is, it's kinda jerky, cause if one player falls behind and gets run off the screen, you'll get sent back to the middle with a 5-second penalty. Sometimes if the player ahead moves fast enough, you'll get charged with several penalties in a row and won't be able to do anything about it. And every second in this game is vital because it'll affect how much time you have in the next race, so the penalties will really kill you. They try to make up for it a little by giving the player that finishes first a 5-second bonus, but usually they'll be the one that's ahead and causing the other to lose time, so it doesn't really help that much. Another thing that happens is a lot of collisions. It's hard enough to get through some of these narrow passageways and enemies by yourself, but with another player it's really just another hazard. A positive way to look at the 2-player mode is to say to your buddy, look, neither one of us are going to beat the whole game, so let's just see who lasts longer. Sometimes a magic wand will appear and grant you some extra time, but I don't know when or how it happens. It seems to be random. One frustrating thing that happens sometimes is if you slide off the side of a ramp, your marble cracks and breaks, and the stupid fucking broom comes out of nowhere and sweep up the remains. Okay, it's cute and all, but it shouldn't cost you time. It only takes a couple seconds, but you need every single one of those seconds. There are some frustrating moments in this game, but it's not impossible to beat or anything. Once you pretty much know your way around the game, you'll stand a pretty good chance of finishing, although all it takes is a few mistakes to fuck everything up, so stay sharp. So now on to the game itself. The first stage, the practice race, is really just a warm-up. It's extremely short, there are no enemies, and it's the only level where the time that you finish won't affect your starting time for the next race. So basically, if you've never played before, or if you just feel like fucking around, you can do so in the practice race. There are 2 little jumps where you can gain some bonus points by landing on these number plates, or you can just skip it and head straight for the goal. The beginner race is where the game essentially begins. You'll start off with 65 seconds no matter how you did in the practice race, and every second counts from here on out. The black marble at the beginning pretty much moves in a wild circle, so just wait for him to move toward the right and cut toward the inside. Don't stand in one spot when these leech slinkies show up, because they'll leap and eat you. Now, there's 2 directions you can take here. Going down this pipe is a shortcut, although the jagged floors make it a little bit more of a bumpy road. Try not to move too slowly here because you'll slip off. If you decide to go the other way, you'll go down a much smoother road, but it takes longer and will cost you some time. This is the biggest pain in the ass of the level. This transparent platform has a huge dip that makes it difficult to get across without falling off the side or down the hole in the middle. Try to stay on the left side as close to the flat part as you can, otherwise just go full tilt and hope for the best. The intermediate race introduces you to some narrow-ass corridors that you'll probably have to bounce your way through. Then maneuver semi-slowly through the leeches and acid pools. Then after going down the pipe, you'll be faced with another fork in the road. You can either ride the green waves to take a shortcut to the goal, but the control is a bit tricky here, so getting back onto the narrow rampway may cause you to careen off the side too many times. If you have trouble at this part, just go down the other way and you should be able to get to the goal with no problem. Just be sure to pick up speed when going uphill. The aerial race is actually less aerial than it is sneak around real carefully so you don't fall off the narrow platform. At first you have to stay straight while getting enough speed to keep away from these vacuums that'll try to suck you up. As long as you move fast enough they can't touch you. After being launched by this catapult you have two choices. If you go left, then you're making a mistake. These fucking yellow pipes will shoot up and send you all over the place. You can't really predict when they're gonna pop up, so you have to get really lucky. Then you have to launch yourself across the way, which won't work if you don't have enough speed or if the goddamn pipes get in your way. So I say go right at the fork and move slowly across these narrow platforms. You'll probably fall off a few times, but it's a hell of a lot less time consuming than going the other way. At the end, these hammers that guard the goal will pop out of the ground randomly. If you touch them, you're pretty much done for. And you'll always start at the area right before the hammers begin, so you have to clear the whole path. Just wait until one of the hammers goes down and speed up as fast as you possibly can. The silly race is ass backwards, and they let you know that at the beginning with the strange disclaimer that everything you know is wrong. What they mean by that is a lot of the enemies have shrunk by about 4 times their normal size, you move up the maze instead of down, and the walls are all painted in colorful fashion. It really should be called the stoner race. The small enemies are really there just for decoration, as you can just flatten them in a pretty bloody death for a Nintendo game. After going up the pipe and violating the laws of physics at the same time, you'll be cornered into a narrow space where you have to roll uphill and toward the right. You need some speed, but you have no room to speed up, so you can get caught rolling off the side a few times. You get to this area with these purple birds or whatever the hell they're supposed to be flying across the screen into the wall. Make your way through the crossfire as long as they're not about to take off and you'll be home free to the goal. And now on to the final stage, the ultimate race. You climb this platform and make your way down this little chute. Now, the different colored surfaces will make a difference in the handling of your marble. The blue blocks and the red flashing blocks make the floor more slippery, and the floors with the rigid pattern make the ride a little more rough. Make your way through it slowly and be careful on the slippery floor when dodging the acid pool. Travel in as straight of a line as you can down these blue tiles, dodge the black marble, and get ready for the big finish. These paths in front of you move, and the empty space is always behind you, so you have to move fast and keep your eye on the path in front of you. This is where that stupid little graphic of the broom sweeping you up gets especially frustrating, because this is the very end of the game. It's pretty fucking hard, and every precious second is important. The pattern isn't all that complex, it's just that you don't really see it in front of you until it's right there and you have to act fast, plus it's narrow as shit. But you gotta slow down when you get to the end of the path because the floor is made up of that rigid surface. Be very careful when cutting the corner, and you'll cross the goal and you've beaten the game. The ending pretty much gives you your point totals and how well you rank up with all the other quote-unquote high rollers. Like I said, it's a short game, but I think it needs to be. It's a pretty bizarre game if you think about it. I mean, just think of the concept. You're a fucking marble, and a marble that rolls down a bunch of ramps trying to get away from other marbles, pools of acid, vacuum cleaners, hammers, purple birds, leaping leeches. I mean, it's not a normal everyday garden variety game. And that's one of its best traits. Its uniqueness makes it very intriguing. It retains the arcade feel and can definitely keep you addicted, and the replay value is pretty high. So that wraps up this edition of Aqualung's Game Reviews. See you next time.